You know, there comes a moment in every sensitive person's life when they stop believing that their gift is actually a curse. There comes a time when the empath, the one who has spent years absorbing everyone else's pain, everyone else's chaos, everyone else's energy, finally wakes up to a stunning realization. And that realization is this: healing doesn't mean you become less sensitive. It means you become powerfully discerning. See, most people think that when an empath heals, they build walls. They think healing means shutting down, closing off, becoming hard and impenetrable like everyone else seems to be. But that's not what happens at all. That's the beautiful mystery of it. A healed empath doesn't become cold. They become clear. They don't become distant. They become deliberate. And they don't stop feeling. They start choosing what they allow into their sacred inner space. For so many years, you've probably been told that your sensitivity is a weakness. You've been told to toughen up, to get thicker skin, to stop caring so much. People who don't understand what it's like to feel everything have given you advice on how to feel nothing. And maybe you tried. Maybe you tried to shut it all down, to build those walls, to become someone you're not. But it didn't work, did it? Because you can't kill a gift. You can only misuse it or master it. What happens when an empath heals is nothing short of a complete transformation of how they relate to their own power. See, before healing, an empath is like a radio that picks up every single station at once. All the static, all the noise, all the frequencies are coming through simultaneously, and there's no filter, no choice, no control. You walk into a room and you feel everything. You talk to someone and you absorb their mood. You watch the news and you carry the weight of the world. You're not just living your life, you're living everyone's life, and it's exhausting. But here's what you need to understand. That exhaustion isn't coming from your sensitivity. It's coming from the lack of boundaries around your sensitivity. It's coming from the belief that feeling everything means you have to fix everything, heal everything, carry everything. And that belief, my friend, is what needs to heal. When an empath begins to heal, they start to recognize something profound. They start to recognize that other people's emotions are not their responsibility. Other people's pain is not theirs to carry. Other people's healing is not theirs to force. This doesn't mean they stop caring. It means they start caring in a way that actually serves both themselves and others. They realize that carrying someone's pain doesn't heal it. It just means two people are now suffering instead of one. You see, the wounded empath thinks that love means suffering with someone. The healed empath knows that love means holding space for someone while maintaining their own peace. The wounded empath thinks that if they're not feeling terrible when someone else feels terrible, they're being selfish. The healed empath knows that their inner peace is the greatest gift they can offer to a world in pain. Let me tell you what actually happens when an empath heals. They become a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. And there's a huge difference. A lifeboat goes out into the storm, gets tossed around by the waves, takes on water, and sometimes sinks trying to save people. A lighthouse stands firm on solid ground, shining its light so that people can find their own way to safety. A lighthouse doesn't leave its foundation to rescue anyone. It trusts that its light is enough. This is what you become. You become someone who stands so firmly in their own truth, their own peace, their own power, that others can feel it, they can sense it. And your stability becomes their possibility. Your peace becomes their permission. Your boundaries become their example. You're not doing less for people. You're doing something infinitely more powerful. You're showing them what's possible. The healed empath learns discernment, and discernment is everything. Discernment means you can feel what someone is going through without taking it on. You can have compassion without becoming consumed. You can offer support without sacrificing yourself. You learn to ask better questions. Not how can I fix this for them, but is this mine to carry? Not what can I do to make them feel better, but what is my actual responsibility here? Not how can I save them, but how can I honor both their path and mine? And you know what happens when you start asking those questions? You stop enabling. You stop rescuing. You stop doing for others what they need to do for themselves. And at first, this might feel selfish. It might feel wrong. Because you've been conditioned to believe that your value comes from how much you give, how much you sacrifice, how much you endure. But that's not love. That's martyrdom. And martyrdom doesn't serve anyone. The healed empath understands that the greatest act of love is to believe in someone's ability to handle their own life, to trust that they have their own inner wisdom, their own strength, their own connection to something greater. When you keep jumping in to save people, you're actually sending them a message. I don't think you can do this. I don't trust you to figure this out. You need me. And that creates dependency, not empowerment. But when you hold space, when you listen, when you offer support without taking over, you're sending a different message. I believe in you. I trust your process. I'm here, but I'm not going to rob you of your own growth by doing this for you. And that, my friend, is true compassion. Here's another thing that happens when an empath heals. They stop being afraid of other people's reactions. They stop walking on eggshells. They stop managing everyone's emotions. They stop shrinking themselves to make others comfortable, because they realize that they're not responsible for how other people feel about their boundaries, their truth, their choices, their path. The wounded empath says yes when they mean no because they don't want to disappoint anyone. The healed empath says no with love and without guilt because they understand that a resentful yes serves no one. The wounded empath stays in situations that drain them because they're afraid of being seen as mean or uncaring. The healed empath leaves those situations because they value their own well-being enough to honor it. And here's what's really beautiful. When you start honoring yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Your boundaries become an invitation. Your self-respect becomes contagious. Your peace becomes magnetic. People who are ready for genuine connection will appreciate and respect your boundaries. And people who aren't, they'll fall away. And that's not a loss. That's a clearing. The healed empath becomes a master of energy. They understand that everything is energy. Thoughts are energy. Emotions are energy. People are energy. Places are energy. And they become very intentional about what energy they allow into their space. They stop going to places that drain them just because they're invited. They stop spending time with people who leave them feeling depleted just because they've known them for years. They stop engaging in conversations that pull them into lower vibrations just because it seems polite. They start asking, does this feel good? Does this align with who I am? Does this support my highest good? And they trust those answers. They trust their own inner guidance system because they've learned that their feelings are information, not obligations. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it, fix it, or make it your mission. A healed empath also becomes incredibly powerful in their ability to transmute energy. See, before healing, an empath absorbs the energy around them and it stays stuck in their system. They feel someone's anger and they become angry. They feel someone's sadness and they become depressed. They feel someone's anxiety and they become anxious. It's like they have no filter, no processing system. But when an empath heals, they develop this incredible ability to feel something, acknowledge it, and let it move through them without attaching to it. They can sit with someone who's grieving and hold space for that grief without becoming grief-stricken themselves. They can witness someone's anger without becoming defensive or absorbing that anger into their own body. They become like water. The energy flows through them, but it doesn't stick to them. And this is where the real magic happens. Because when you can be present with someone's pain without becoming their pain, you create a space for transformation. You become a healing presence, not because you're trying to heal anyone, but because your own regulated nervous system, your own inner peace, your own groundedness creates a frequency that others can entrain to. You become the tuning fork. You set the tone. The healed empath also stops looking for validation outside of themselves. This is huge. The wounded empath often becomes a people pleaser because they're trying to earn love, approval, acceptance. They think, if I can just help enough people, be there for enough people, give enough, sacrifice enough, then I'll be worthy. Then I'll be valued. But that's a bottomless pit. No amount of external validation will ever fill an internal void. The healed empath realizes that their worth is inherent. It's not based on what they do or don't do for others. It's not based on how many people like them or need them or appreciate them. It's based on the simple fact that they exist. They are valuable because they are. And from that place of inner fullness, they give not to get anything back, but because it feels good to give. And there's a huge energetic difference. When you give from overflow, it's pure. When you give from depletion, it's a transaction. Let me tell you something else that happens. The healed empath stops being a dumpster for everyone's problems. You know what I'm talking about. People would seek you out just to vent, to complain, to unload all their stuff, and you would sit there and take it because you thought that's what being a good friend, a good partner, a good person meant. But you'd walk away feeling like you just got hit by a truck, drained, heavy, exhausted. The healed empath sets boundaries around this. They might say something like, I can see you're going through something and I care about you, but right now I don't have the capacity to hold this. Can we talk later? Or they might say, I'm happy to listen, but I need you to be open to solutions, not just venting, because I can't just be a sounding board for negativity. And they say this without guilt, without apology, because they know that their energy is precious and they're not obligated to give it to anyone who demands it. The healed empath becomes selective. Selective with their time, selective with their energy, selective with their presence. And this isn't about being cold or uncaring. This is about being wise. This is about understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, and more importantly, you shouldn't have to. Your cup should be full. It should overflow. And the overflow is what you share, not the last drops. Now, here's something that might surprise you. The healed empath often becomes more sensitive, not less, but it's a different kind of sensitivity. It's not reactive sensitivity where everything feels like an attack or a wound. It's receptive sensitivity where you can pick up on the subtle energies, the unspoken truths, the hidden patterns, and you can use that information to navigate life more effectively. You become intuitive in a way that serves you. You walk into a room and you can sense the energy, and instead of absorbing it, you decide whether to stay or go. You meet someone new and you can feel whether they're aligned with you, and you trust that feeling instead of overriding it with logic or politeness. You're in a conversation and you can sense when someone isn't being truthful, and you don't gaslight yourself into ignoring it. This is the gift of healed sensitivity. You have access to information that most people don't, and you use it to create a life that feels good, that feels safe, that feels aligned. You're not numbing yourself, you're not shutting down, you're tuning in at a higher frequency. The healed empath also develops a relationship with solitude. They realize that being alone isn't lonely. It's replenishing, it's necessary, it's sacred. They stop feeling guilty about needing time alone. They stop forcing themselves to be social when they need to recharge. They create space for silence, for stillness, for just being with themselves without any external demands or stimulation. And in that solitude, they connect with something greater. They connect with their own soul. They connect with source energy, with universal wisdom, with the infinite intelligence that's always available when we get quiet enough to hear it. And from that connection, they draw strength. They draw clarity. They draw peace. They're not dependent on other people to feel okay. They have an inner wellspring that never runs dry. Here's another beautiful transformation. The healed empath stops trying to change people. They stop trying to make people see what they see, understand what they understand, wake up to what they've woken up to. They realize that everyone is on their own path, on their own timeline, and that forcing awareness on someone who isn't ready is like trying to make a flower bloom before its season. It doesn't work. It just damages the flower. So they release the need to convert, to convince, to explain themselves to people who aren't asking. They share their truth when it's invited. They offer their perspective when it's wanted. But they don't force it. They don't make it their mission to enlighten everyone around them. They trust that each person has their own inner guidance, their own lessons, their own awakening process. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let people figure it out for themselves. The healed empath becomes comfortable with being misunderstood. This is a big one, because when you're sensitive, when you're intuitive, when you operate from a different frequency than most people, you're going to be misunderstood. People are going to project onto you. They're going to make assumptions. They're going to judge you based on their own limitations, their own fears, their own unhealed wounds, and the wounded empath takes that personally. They try to defend themselves, explain themselves, prove themselves. They exhaust themselves trying to be seen accurately by people who aren't capable of seeing them. The healed empath lets that go. They know who they are. They're not confused about their intentions, their heart, their truth, and they don't need everyone else to validate that. They're okay with being the villain in someone else's story if that's what that person needs to believe. They're okay with being too much for some people and not enough for others. They're okay with polarizing, with standing out, with not fitting into neat little boxes, because they've stopped trying to be palatable. They've started being authentic. And authenticity, real authenticity, is magnetic. It draws in the right people like a beacon, people who are aligned with you, who value what you value, who see you for who you really are. And it repels the wrong people just as strongly. And that's not something to fear. That's something to celebrate. Because every person who walks away because they can't handle your authenticity is making room for someone who can. The healed empath also becomes a master manifester. Why? Because they've cleared out all the energetic debris that was blocking them. all the people-pleasing, all the codependency, all the self-sacrifice, all the guilt, all the fear of being seen, all the beliefs that they're not worthy unless they're serving everyone else. When you clear all of that out, you create space for your own desires, your own dreams, your own vision. And from that clear space, you can actually create. You can set intentions that are aligned with your soul, not with what everyone else thinks you should want. You can take action from inspiration, not from obligation. You can attract opportunities, relationships, experiences that actually match who you are, not who you've been pretending to be to keep everyone else comfortable. The healed empath understands the law of attraction in a way that the wounded empath can't. Because the wounded empath is constantly leaking energy, constantly scattering their focus on everyone else's problems, constantly vibrating at the frequency of whatever chaos is around them. But the healed empath has learned to hold their own frequency. They've learned to stay in their own lane. They've learned to be the source of their own peace, their own joy, their own fulfillment. And from that place, they naturally attract more of the same. Let me tell you about the relationships a healed empath creates. They're different. They're not based on need. They're based on choice. The wounded empath attracts people who need them, who depend on them, who can't function without them. And they think that's love. They think being needed means being loved. But that's not love. That's enmeshment. That's dysfunction. The healed empath attracts people who are whole on their own, people who have done their own work, people who aren't looking for someone to complete them or save them or fix them. People who are choosing to share their life with you, not because they need you, but because they enjoy you, because they appreciate you, because being with you enhances an already good life. And these relationships are so much healthier. There's respect, there's reciprocity, there's space to be individuals while also being together. There's no guilt tripping, no manipulation, no emotional blackmail. Just two whole people coming together to create something beautiful. And when conflict arises, as it does in any relationship, it's handled with maturity, with communication, with the understanding that you're both responsible for your own emotions and your own healing. The healed empath doesn't look to their partner to make them happy. They bring their own happiness into the relationship. They don't look to their friends to validate them. They validate themselves. They don't look to their family to give them permission to live their life. They give themselves that permission. And that's freedom. That's empowerment. Here's something else. The healed empath becomes playful, joyful, light, because they're not carrying the weight of the world anymore. They're not responsible for fixing everything and everyone. They can laugh. They can be silly. They can have fun without feeling guilty about it. They can enjoy life without constantly monitoring everyone else's emotional state. They remember what it's like to feel good just because. To do things that bring them pleasure without needing a productive reason. To rest without earning it. To celebrate without waiting for permission. They reconnect with their inner child, the part of them that knows how to play, how to create, how to find magic in the simple things. And this isn't frivolous, this isn't selfish, this is essential, because joy is healing, laughter is medicine, play is how we restore our life force. And when you allow yourself to experience these things, you raise your vibration. You become a source of light in the world, not because you're trying to be, but because you genuinely feel good. And that feeling is contagious. The healed empath also develops a strong spiritual practice, not because they think they should, but because they crave that connection. They need that anchor. They understand that this physical world with all its chaos and noise and demands is just one layer of reality, and they tap into the other layers, the energetic, the spiritual, the eternal. Maybe they meditate, maybe they pray, maybe they spend time in nature, maybe they do yoga or energy work or sound healing. Whatever form it takes, they prioritize that connection. They make time for it. They protect it because they know that's where their power comes from. That's where their guidance comes from. That's where their peace comes from. And from that spiritual foundation, they can handle anything life throws at them because they're not just dealing with it from their human self, their ego self, their limited self. They're dealing with it from their higher self, their soul self, their infinite self. And that changes everything. Now, let me tell you what a healed empath doesn't become. They don't become perfect. They don't become immune to pain or struggle or challenge. They don't float above it all in some blissed out state where nothing bothers them. That's not realistic and that's not the goal. The goal isn't to transcend being human. The goal is to be fully human in the most conscious, empowered way possible. So yes, the healed empath still feels pain, but they don't suffer needlessly. They feel their feelings, they process them, they learn from them, and they let them go. They don't cling to pain or make it their identity. They don't use past wounds as an excuse to stay stuck. They keep moving forward. The healed empath still makes mistakes. They still have moments where they fall back into old patterns, where they say yes when they mean no, where they absorb someone's energy, where they try to fix something that isn't theirs to fix. But the difference is they catch themselves, they course correct, they don't beat themselves up about it. They just notice, learn, and adjust. Progress, not perfection. The healed empath still has bad days, days where they're tired, days where they're overwhelmed, days where they need to cry or scream or just be a mess for a while, and that's okay. That's human. The difference is they don't make those days mean something about their worth or their progress. They honor where they are. They give themselves grace. They rest. They recharge. And they trust that it's temporary. What makes someone a healed empath isn't that they never struggle. It's that they've developed the tools, the awareness, the inner strength to handle the struggle differently. They've learned to be their own best friend, their own safe space, their own source of comfort and support. They don't abandon themselves when things get hard. They show up for themselves. And they've learned that healing isn't a destination. It's a practice. It's a daily choice. It's an ongoing commitment to yourself. Some days you're going to feel amazing, like you've got it all figured out. Other days you're going to feel like you're back at square one, but you're not. You're spiraling upward. You're integrating. You're growing. And every challenge is an opportunity to deepen your healing, to strengthen your foundation, to prove to yourself that you can handle it. The healed empath becomes someone who is both soft and strong, compassionate and boundaried, sensitive and selective, open and protected. They're not one or the other. They're the beautiful integration of both. They can feel everything and not be destroyed by it. They can care deeply and not lose themselves. They can love fully and not sacrifice their own well-being. This is the paradox of the healed empath. They're more feeling and more boundaried, more connected and more independent, more generous and more self-focused. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding the balance, the sweet spot where you can be true to your sensitive nature while also honoring your human needs. And when you find that balance, when you become that healed empath, you're unstoppable. You know your worth. You trust your intuition. You honor your energy. You create your reality. You live your truth. You love without losing yourself. You give without depleting yourself. You serve without sacrificing yourself. You become a force of nature, a living example of what's possible when someone fully owns their gifts instead of seeing them as curses. When someone transforms their sensitivity from a source of pain into a source of power, when someone stops being everyone else's healer and becomes their own first. And the ripple effect of that transformation is enormous, because when you heal yourself, you inspire others to heal themselves. When you set boundaries, you give others permission to set boundaries. When you choose yourself, you show others that they can choose themselves too. You don't have to preach it. You don't have to teach it. You just have to live it. And your life becomes the message. So if you're an empath who's tired of feeling like your sensitivity is a burden, know this: you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be freed. Freed from the beliefs that have kept you small, from the patterns that have kept you stuck, from the conditioning that told you your value comes from how much you give to others at the expense of yourself. Your sensitivity is a superpower. Your empathy is a gift. Your ability to feel is sacred. Don't dim it. Don't kill it. Don't try to be someone you're not. Just learn to wield it consciously. Learn to protect it fiercely. Learn to direct it wisely. And watch what happens. Watch how your life transforms when you stop abandoning yourself for everyone else and start showing up for yourself the way you've always shown up for them. This is your invitation. Not to become less of who you are, but to become more aligned, more empowered, more authentic, more boundaried, more joyful, more you. The world doesn't need another person pretending to be fine while falling apart inside. The world needs you, healed and whole and shining your light unapologetically. That's what a healed empath becomes. Not what people think. Not cold or closed off or uncaring, but radiant, powerful, free. And that freedom, that power, that radiance, that's your birthright. It's time to claim it.